Just as jury selection was set to begin in his federal tax case, this apparently came as a surprise to prosecutors who have now urged the judge to reject this plea. Jay Town is joining me now, former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama. Jay, it's great to have you on. What happened today? Explain this for us in layman's terms.
Sure. Well, 9 charges that are related to tax evasion or failure to pay income tax, right? And it's about $1.4 million in taxes that were actually evaded. So that's what he owes the government at least. He spent that money on prostitutes, cars, hotels, drugs. We tried to write all that off as business expenses. So he walked into court today, and this really was the smartest thing that he can do, is take it right up to the last minute. Maybe there'd be a continuance. Maybe somebody would get sick. Something might happen to bump this thing even further down the line. But once he got into court, having already been convicted in the gun case in Delaware, there was no reason for him to embarrass himself and his entire family by allowing the salacious details that the government would need to put into evidence that would certainly embarrass his whole family and just drag that out for a couple more weeks here, especially since we all know his dad's going to commute or pardon him.
Come on. Joe Biden has said he wasn't going to pardon him at all. I guess he never actually addressed commuting the sentence.
He's a 4 handicap too, right? So, whatever. Sure, right.
So am I, yeah.
Yeah, right. We all are. Yeah, it's great. It's a lot of joy.
So how much of the process, Jay, have they gone through? If there were 100 jurors already selected, this is something that's been going on for a while. How much has this cost taxpayers to get to this point in the trial process?
Well, if he would have just come to Jesus when he was charged months and months ago, because remember, the special counsel could have wrapped up shop by now, at least on this case. They already have a conviction in the other, so they don't need to have investigators, agents, security, plus all the lawyers involved. No, it's, you add it all up, I'm sure it's 7 figures, right? But what's interesting is that his lawyer, Abby Lowell, was a good lawyer, DC guy. Lowell went in and said, we're going to enter an Alford plea. Now, an Alford plea is different than a normal plea of guilty because essentially what you're only willing to admit is the government could prove beyond a reasonable doubt that I'm guilty, but I still say I didn't do it. Yeah, so I'm willing to...
I need to put that as the bio on my Twitter account. The Alford plea to my entire life.
There you go. You're right. So... But the government said, no, because that is something that we have to consent to as prosecutors. And so they said, no, he's guilty. He's not getting special treatment. And an Alford plea is not something that I've never seen one. I wouldn't do one as a prosecutor, and I've prosecuted over 10,000 defendants, and I never did an Alford plea once. Hey, man, you did it, or you can whip my butt in court. Those are your 2 options, right? So he finally said, okay, all right, I'll plead to all 9 charges. Now, the government, they can't object to him pleading guilty without a plea agreement. So they can't just force him into a trial. And so if he wants to plead guilty, he can plead guilty, and then he's just sentenced as the judge deems fit without any protections of a plea agreement. Now, why, Scott? Why would someone plead guilty to 9 charges? You could at least have 4 of them knocked out as an inducement for the plea, right? What assurances would you have internally that if you plead guilty to 9 charges that you're probably not going to go to prison? Name one. What is, I mean, nothing comes to my mind that is within reason, right? But I mean, he Hunter Biden, he went to Yale Law School. I did not, right? I'm a Notre Dame guy. So, what are you going to do? This is pretty obvious to me. And the thing is, too, this stretches because there's a pretrial or a preliminary sentencing report that'll stretch into almost November, mid-October. Then they can offer other things in mitigation, items in mitigation for the sentence, drag that out for a couple of months. Then you have the holiday break where judges are not interested in this on December 27th, right? So that takes us into January. Biden might not even be president when the sentencing date occurs. So the interesting part about that is there's no sentence to commute. He'd have to pardon his son. So Hunter Biden needs to be sentenced before January 20th and hope his dad lives till then.
So to have his sentence commuted, but the president, Joe Biden, could pardon him for any crimes he may have committed even before this Alford plea is accepted, if it even is.
Yeah, I mean, he could pardon him right now, but he's not going to do anything until after November 5th.
Right.
That makes sense. Right, but all of this is extended past November 5th. The sentencing in the gun case in Delaware is after November 5th, and now this will be much later. My point about the commutation is that this is the most serious offense, and he owes the government $1.4 million. Until he's sentenced, he's actually not guilty of anything. I've made the same argument on your show as it relates to the Manhattan DA's case, right? Trump, until he's sentenced, is not officially convicted of anything. And so the only way, if the sentencing goes beyond January 20th, that Biden could get his son out of this rut is to pardon him. And if he pardons him, then we lose the $1.4 million that Hunter owes us.
Well,
and so isn't that sweet?
Yeah, that's not a bad deal if you could get it. We're talking to Jay Town, former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama, on the Scott Sancho. As part of accepting the Alford plea, if they wanted to, could the prosecutors make Hunter Biden in open court admit everything that he may have done as part of the process? I've seen that on Law and Order, I believe.
Well, they're gonna have to go through sort of a recitation of the elements, and there's facts that relate to those elements, of course. And so, yes, he's gonna have to say that's accurate. Yes, that's true. And they'll have to do that for all 9 charges. Now, David Weiss, the special counsel, will be able to sort of enter these salacious details that, the $10,000 that he tried to write off, that was based on an escort service bill that he got.
I mean, we've all paid $10,000 for escorts, right?
Well, we've all written it off too, right? He just got caught, right?
Right.
So yeah,
it's fine.
And so who wouldn't tell the government that I have this expense for hookers, and I'd like you to give me a break on this expense?
Right? It's an entertainment expense, right? It's like T&E, meals and entertainment. It's all tax deductible.
Right. Yeah. And I know this is awful, and I hate to even joke about someone who committed a crime. But if the clown show that is the Biden family hadn't turned this into a clown show, and they would have taken it seriously all along instead of doing what was always intended, which is running out the clock on the serious offenses, which they did. Sweetheart plea deal that was basically a couple of misdemeanors, slap on the wrist, and he'll go on double secret probation for the gun, right? And then Hunter himself blew that deal up because he was scared to death that there was some way we could toll the statute of limitations in 2025, January 21st. A new administration comes in and can go back and they can actually attach criminal wrongdoing through maybe wire fraud, for instance, which does have a 10-year statute of limitation. And that's why they said, no, we want, from the beginning of time until today, we want to be immune from everything except for the couple of, basically traffic tickets that you're making us plead guilty to today. And that's what blew this whole thing up. He would have been better off just taking the deal and moving on.
So, Jay, to wrap up our conversation on Hunter Biden, and then I want to get your thoughts on the latest on the Trump trials, and if only there were a judge available who could tell me whether or not they have the authority to do this, could the judge still throw this case out or force the prosecutors to accept the Alford plea deal?
No, and you're talking the Hunter Biden case, not anything to do with Trump, right?
Right. This particular deal.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no way that the judge could force the prosecutors to take an Alford plea deal. That's just not. But conversely, there's no way the judge could disallow a guilty plea. But that's just a straight guilty plea. There's nothing special about it where Hunter could say, I was in such a haze during that time. It's hard for my lawyers to defend me, so it was just easier to admit that they probably could prove the case. rather than say, yeah, I did it. I'm a jerk, and I regret it.
Man,
so that's what
if he's able to blame that on a drug-induced haze, then I'm able to get away with a lot of crap that I did for about 12 years of my life.
Oh, my. Well, that's, Scott,
maybe not that long.
Let's move on. Yeah, exactly. Whatever, man. You do you, buddy.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Jay Town here on the Scott Sands Show. He's former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama. Catch us up on the Trump trials, which have picked back up again. The judge, I believe in the case, has not set a trial date. I don't know. We're talking about the election interference case. I don't know if he's going to try to push this back till after the election or not, or could potentially tie Trump up during the campaign season. And in fact, in the other case, could put Trump in jail.
Well, a couple of things. So there's no concern about Trump going to jail in the Manhattan DA's case. Everything that he was found guilty of, he has a right to appeal. He'd have to file an appeal bond, and he can take that up to the Court of Appeals in New York or even federal court and run those appeals out. So that's before he spends a second, at Rikers Island. So there's no chance he's going to jail there. As far as, look, Jack Smith has made a lot of, hey, I'm not, I don't care about the election. I'd like to go to trial tomorrow. Let's seat a jury on November 5th. That's just Jack Smith. But what was sort of lost in the reporting on this in the last day or two, I think they had a hearing, I want to say it was Tuesday, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, maybe it was today. But essentially what Judge Chutkan said is, like, we're nowhere close to even scheduling a trial date. We still have issues that are on appeal. We have all these other things going on. We're not even close to scheduling a trial date. They got to give at least 6 to 10 weeks for people to know when there's a trial, right? You don't just say, well, be here on Monday. We're striking up a jury. That's just not how it works at any level that's competent, and even Judge Chutkan knows that. So I would suggest to you that Judge Chutkan is very mindful that this is not going to trial prior to November 5th. And I don't think it'll ever go to trial. And if Trump wins, what's the point?
Right.
If you're Jack Smith, and if you don't get it to trial by January 20th, I don't know this to be a fact, but I have a hunch that the first person fired in the administration is Jack Smith.
That could be, which would be its own controversy, of course. Jay, thanks for catching us up on this. It's complicated. It's a distraction for the Trump campaign for sure, and it's terrific media fodder for the pro-Kamala Harris crowd. Jay Town, former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama, here on the Scott Sands Show. Jay, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Scott. See you, buddy.
See ya. Roll Tide.